Picture this. It's September 2012. You're deep in the Tambopata National Reserve in the Peruvian Amazon. It is the dead of night. The jungle is thick, it's pitch black, humming with unseen life. You shine your flashlight into the darkness, and the beam catches something pretty grim. Hanging right in front of you is a dead, rotting spider. It's about an inch long, suspended completely motionless in its web. Honestly, it looks like it's been decaying for days. Lean in for a closer look, and suddenly, the corpse starts to violently twitch. But wait, dead spiders do not twitch. As your brain struggles to process what you're seeing, your perspective completely shifts. You realize the massive twitching monster in the web isn't a spider at all. It's a fake. It's a hyper-realistic, life-sized puppet, and sitting directly above it, actively pulling the invisible strings, is the real puppet master, a creature literally 10 times smaller than its own creation.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unraveling one of the most astonishing biological anomalies ever recorded, the decoy spider. For over a decade now, evolutionary biologists have been desperately trying to decipher why this tiny mastermind constructs a massive fake version of itself. It's a wild mystery that blends architecture, physics, and questions the very nature of animal intelligence.
To really grasp the sheer scale of this deception, you have to look at the architect. The actual spider is tiny. We're talking about 5 millimeters long, roughly the size of a single grain of rice. Yet, in complete and total darkness, it constructs a three-dimensional silhouette stretching 25 millimeters or more. To put that into perspective for us humans, that's like you or me going out into the yard every single night and building a 50-foot anatomically correct statue of ourselves out of pure garbage.
Okay, let's dive into this. Meet the architect responsible for this, Cyclosa longicauda. They belong to a specific group of neotropical trash-line orb weavers. Now, most spiders just build a clean web and sit there waiting. But Cyclosa spiders? They're basically hoarders. They collect debris and pile it up vertically to camouflage themselves. But Cyclosa longicauda takes this to an absolute extreme. It doesn't just hide in a pile of trash, it literally sculpts it. And the building materials? They are straight out of a horror film. The spider doesn't even leave its web to forage, it just uses the literal graveyard of its own web. It recycles dead insect corpses, crushed leaves, bits of bark, old egg sacs, and, incredibly, its very own discarded, molted exoskeletons. It is out there weaving a biological Frankenstein out of its fallen victims and its own shed skin.
What's wild is that this 90-minute construction process is a total marvel of natural engineering. Step 1, gather all that macabre debris. Step 2, wrap it up. The spider acts like a living glue gun, dispensing specific structural and sticky silks to bind the loose trash into a moldable kind of clay. And then step 3, sculpt. It meticulously arranges the debris into precise anatomical proportions. We're talking a distinct head, an abdomen, and distinct leg segments.
And just to be clear, this isn't just some random clump of trash that looks like a spider if you squint really hard. Researchers actually tested the spider's artistic integrity by sprinkling bright artificial glitter onto the webs. The result? The spider actively rejected it. It meticulously cut out every single piece of glitter and threw it away. Only organic, natural debris makes the final cut for its masterpiece.
But building the decoy is only Act 1. The real magic happens when the web is threatened. While other spiders build physical fortresses to hide inside, this spider invests all of its energy into a life-or-death theater performance. When a predator approaches, the spider initiates an absolutely terrifying illusion.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the secret to the illusion, which lies in the biomechanics. It's a behavior called web flexing. When a bird or a wasp gets too close, the tiny real spider, hiding just above the decoy, starts violently shaking its abdomen. It sends these rapid, high-frequency vibrations right down the web, and because the massive decoy is tethered to these specific silk lines, the fake spider begins to dance. It looks angry, it looks massive, and it looks incredibly alive.
The physics behind this are just staggering. Mathematical models of orb web dynamics reveal exactly how this works. The spider is essentially acting like a child pumping a swing, but at hyperspeed. It holds onto these invisible guidelines, and at the exact turning point of the web's oscillation, like when the velocity hits 0 for just a microsecond, the spider alters the angle of its legs. It yanks the tension precisely when it will maximize the kinetic energy of the web. This mathematical pumping creates an explosive acceleration, what we could call the physics of fear. Working at a frantic 8.5 hertz, The tiny architect takes the web from a tiny 1 mm sway to a violent 10 cm whip in under half a second. Imagine that. To a predator, a giant, terrifying spider has just lunged right out of the darkness at them.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer mechanical efficiency of this maneuver. This phase portrait maps the growth of the web's amplitude over time, spiraling perfectly outward. Every single time the spider adjusts its posture, it feeds energy into the system. Virtually zero energy is wasted moving the spider's own body. 100% of the work goes directly into making the massive decoy thrash around. 9 times out of 10, the predator panics and retreats.
But that brings up a much deeper evolutionary mystery. Why? Why spend so much energy painting a giant target on your own house? Well, the answer likely lies in the sky above. Enter the helicopter damselfly. This absolute nightmare of an insect has a 19 cm wingspan, and it almost exclusively hunts small spiders. It will pluck a 5 mm spider right off a web without a second thought, but it is completely terrified of large 25 mm spiders. So the decoy graduates the tiny Cyclosa from an easy snack into a highly intimidating threat.
Now, the scientific community is still fiercely debating this, presenting an evolutionary suspect lineup of 4 main theories. Theory 1, the damsel defense we just covered, appearing too large to attack. Theory 2, the shell game, where the decoy simply serves as a physical meat shield, taking the fatal strike from a wasp while the real spider drops away safely. Theory 3, the double disguise, where from a distance, the clump just looks like unappetizing bird droppings, but up close, it's a terrifying spider. And Theory 4, the egg protector, suggesting it's sacrificial armor built primarily to shield their offspring. The reality? Honestly, it might be a brilliant combination of all 4. But just as scientists were piecing this all together in Peru, a massive bombshell dropped. 18,000 kilometers away, all the way across the globe in the Philippines, a researcher independently discovered an entirely different species of Cyclosa building the exact same massive, anatomically correct fake spiders, separated by entire oceans, yet building totally identical decoys.
And if that wasn't mind-bending enough, in 2013, a third, completely distinct species was found doing the exact same thing on the isolated island of Madagascar. This is an absolutely incredible case of convergent evolution. The cold, brutal math of natural selection independently invented this bizarre architectural defense mechanism 3 separate times across the planet.
Let's move to Nanate and see how this builds. Because the most baffling mystery here isn't physical or evolutionary. It is neurological. Let's shrink down and look at the actual hardware running this entire operation. The brain of the Cyclosa spider is smaller than a grain of sand. It contains roughly 200,000 neurons.
Compare that to a human brain, which is operating on 86 billion neurons. Even a tiny honeybee has over 1 million. Yet, with a brain you could literally lose inside a speck of pocket lint, this spider somehow possesses the biological software to gather materials, recognize physical proportions, construct distinct legs, build a head, and orchestrate a totally flawless biomechanical defense sequence.
Which forces us to ask a deeply unsettling philosophical question. Does a creature this small actually understand its own form? I mean, self-recognition in the animal kingdom is incredibly rare, usually reserved for dolphins, great apes, and elephants. So does this tiny spider have a mental image of itself? Is it intentionally trying to paint a giant self-portrait in the dark?
So, the crucial point is that this behavior directly challenges our traditional definitions of animal intelligence. Many scientists are now proposing a radical theory called extended cognition. The idea is that the spider doesn't actually hold the blueprint inside its tiny brain. Instead, it outsources its thinking to the environment. The web itself acts as a literal external hard drive. The spider just follows simple, tactile rules, and the physical properties of the web guide the construction. Its intelligence embedded in the architecture itself, rather than the brain.
This leaves us staring into the dark of the Amazon, realizing just how much of the natural world remains utterly hidden from us. We've mapped the physics, we've sequenced the evolution, but the core mystery of the puppeteer remains. So, what do you think? Is this tiny architect displaying a spark of intentional, self-aware intelligence? Or is it merely executing a flawless, hard-coded line of evolutionary programming? Let me know your theories down in the comments. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember, the next time you see a giant spider on a web, look closely. It might just be a puppet.